it going? I'm 𝘥𝘠𝘧𝘪𝘳 and you're listening to My Year in Sound, a Sound of Life podcast powered by 𝘥𝑬𝑡. In each episode, we ask our special guests to put their year in music under the spotlight. We explore everything from iconic album releases through to unforgettable live shows, all kinds of music memories entwined with personal experiences and anecdotes. What's more, they'll bring in 3 personal items to help illustrate their special year in music. Joining us today is One to Watch, an artist who is rising through the ranks of the UK's independent music scene. Miso Extra began releasing music in lockdown of 2020. Japanese pop, film soundtracks, hip-hop and jazz feed into what she calls her Misoverse, citing influences like MF Doom and 𝘸𝘩𝘢𝘵 alongside Studio Ghibli. Jumping between singing and rapping, often in Japanese, her distinctive music and sports chic style have been championed by the likes of Crack Magazine, DIY and Clash. So Miso Extra, welcome to My Year in Sound. How's it going?
Hi, 𝘥𝘠𝘢𝘯𝘆. I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Good to have you here. So we're going to dive into your chosen year, which is 2012 soon. But before that, let's get to know you a little bit better. So you began releasing music around, was it 2020, 2021?
Yeah, let's go with that. Honestly, it's a blur, but if that's when the lockdown was, then yes.
That's the time. So you arrived with the adventures of Tricky and Duke, a really well defined sound from the off. Where did your journey in music making begin?
Through a lot of trial and error. Mm-hmm. I think this was the first project that I thought to even put out. It was a bit of a happy accident that it even came out in the first place. I'm quite a private, shy person. So I think I'd sent originally I made these demos and I'd sent them to a friend, and the friend then sent them to someone else who then became my now manager. So it escalated. And it was kind of him that was like, yeah, we should so release these. And I thought, oh, okay, let's do it. Let's release them. And then it kind of just snowballed in a good way from there. But yeah, it's a lot of like making some very terrible songs throughout the years and giving it a go and kind of going from one bedroom studio setup to the next. I kind of started as a kid just like making up songs as you do in the shower or if you're kind of heading to school and things like that. And then it wasn't really till teenage years, then you start kind of realizing that friends are in bands. And then it was really in kind of when I went to university that you met people who were bedroom producers. And then the concept of like how electronic music was made really kind of sunk in and really made like a impact. And I was like, oh, so you can actually do this at home. Like you don't necessarily need to be kind of in a band or the best musician in the world. And it kind of kept going, and I think it's something that I've always like done, and a lot of my friends have always kind of been into music, but in terms of the sound, I think it was just it just kind of, I think especially when I met Tricky and Duke, so the producers that I wrote Adventures of Tricky and Duke, and kind of that's their namesake, Sunk, and it's about kind of, in my head it's like about the friendship that we have. And I think it's through meeting them that I kind of gained the confidence to kind of explore all these kind of different sounds and making. So it's kind of a fusion of like, I definitely think my sound is like electro, indie, but with like R&B tempos and cadences, but with obviously the rapping, it's like hip hop inspired. Mm-hmm. It's just like a bit of a pick a mix of everything that I like.
Great.
Yeah.
And I love that, the reason that you ultimately started releasing music is because the people around you were cheerleading you and encouraging you to do it.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because I think for a lot of artists, you've been creating for perhaps the joy of creating and making music, but a lot of artists will also be really keen to make sure that their music is getting heard. But for you, it was kind of like you were nudged into that part of it.
Yeah, I think it's like, I guess when you're making, there's a part of you being like, oh, it'd be nice if people liked it. But I think I try not to think about that too much, because I think it then jeopardizes kind of how I make personally. Although I have discovered I love performing the songs. So that's been like a happy accident. But yeah, I think it's really, really and truly, like you say, like through friends and a support network that I was like, oh, okay, cool, let's give this a go and see where this goes.
Some artists I find say that it's important to make music for yourself, and if other people like it, they like it. And other artists will say it's important to make music that connects with people and almost putting themselves second. Where do you kind of sit on that scale?
I think it really does depend on kind of where your head's at the time. I think now that, you know, there's starting to be more of like a fan base, I do try and think about the audience that are listening to it, especially when you're writing lyrics about like what would people want to hear songs about. And then other times I definitely ask myself like, what would I want to hear a song about? I guess it kind of flips between the two. It depends where I'm feeling inspired by at the time. But ultimately I am just making things to make myself happy. So that sounds quite selfish, but I am just making for the sake of the joy of creating, I think.
Good. I think that's important. Tell me a bit about what you were listening to at home, like in the family home or as a kid walking to school. What was in your headphones?
Oh my gosh. I'm very instinctive. I will listen to honestly anything, but I would listen to I don't know, all sorts through the years. My mum really liked a lot of kind of like whatever was pop at the time. She was quite into like female singers, so like Bette Midler, and she really liked Amy Winehouse. And then she also really loved like kind of jazz compilation, just like playlists and things. And then we had a lot of radio on, and my dad really liked the Eurythmics, so it was kind of a bit between the two. But I think when I kind of started finding my own music, it's what your friends listen to, so it's a lot of like electronic stuff. Like I really like Daft Punk, and then a lot of rap and hip hop, so it's kind of, well, I guess I'm trying to think, like Doom, Dilla, things like that. And then indie music was huge when I was growing up. So yeah, it really is just a bit of a mishmash. But I used to love listening to Studio Ghibli like film soundtracks, just because it makes everything kind of a lot more cinematic. You're going through life and kind of seeing yourself through that kind of romantic lens, I think.
There's a word for it, I can't remember, but I came across a word where I was like, I know that feeling, that experience of listening to music and feeling like the main character in your own movie. And I recently found a word for it. I wish I could remember it. I don't know if you've come across that. But
no, I don't think so.
But as a concept, I think it's something that we've all been familiar with at certain points where you like, you know what's ahead in the day and you're choosing that soundtrack that's going to make you feel powered up. If it's like an interview or, you know, whatever it may be, just to kind of make you feel like, I've got this.
For sure. Like I'm hugely visual, which sounds weird that I make music, but I like to imagine like what scene the song would be kind of supporting. And that's definitely like, I like to curate the situation. I'm really into curating like what music sounds best when and for what situations. So I think, you know, making playlists for myself is very, very that, like feeling, kind of really understanding how I'm feeling in that moment, and then knowing, okay, well, I want to put that song on, and kind of pinpointing that.
Spoken like a true DJ. Do you play out?
Yeah, I do DJ.
Nice. That totally makes sense. I imagine that kind of, you know, satisfies you at creative parts of you quite differently. Making music, and then curating music for an immediate audience. Do you get like different kicks out of each one? Yeah,
I love curating as a whole, like just like kind of creating an experience. And I think I have a very active imagination, so I definitely think it helps stimulate many parts of that. And I like to make other people feel good, so I guess it's trying to read the room quite a bit when you play songs. And I think music has this beautiful ability to be able to kind of usher people into different emotional states. Yeah. So that's really fun for me. And you grew up in Buckinghamshire. Yes. What was little Miso's universe like in Buckinghamshire? Paint us a picture. I was very much a daydreamer. I was not present in the now. I definitely was headphones firmly in and listening to my I had an iPod Shuffle that could only have like 100 or so songs on. So it was permanently kind of every weekend curating like, okay, what songs do I want to listen to, and downloading them and learning the songs on repeat. Just a lot of that, going to gigs, like kind of like small kind of grassroots venues, a lot with friends. Some good, some bad, some in between.
You've got to have those experiences, I guess, of like going to a gig and learning what you don't like as much as what you do like.
Yeah, for sure.
It's important to kind of, when you're figuring out your tastes, you know, however active that pursuit may feel, or proactive, I should say. You know, it's important to, like, if you come away from a gig and go, oh, nah, that wasn't for me. Like, as an artist, as a developing artist, it's quite important to have those experiences too, to go out and be surprised or not know what you're going out to see, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I was very obsessed with trying to absorb as much, art as possible, just anything creative, I think. Just like going to I'd spend a lot of time getting on trains, going into London, visiting all the museums and galleries, because we have the luxury in the UK of it being free. And when you are a teenager, you don't have a lot of money. So just being able to get the train in is great. So that's, definitely took up a lot of my time, I think. A lot of headspace, I think.
So let's talk a bit more about your music today. A lot of, you've mentioned Studio Ghibli, a lot of different references to hip-hop, etc. But I'd love to know how you use your music to pay tribute to your heritage as well. I hear a lot of sort of influences from a little bit from J-pop, Ghibli, as we mentioned. How does your music kind of provide a vessel for you to explore that part of yourself?
I think it's just not trying to kind of pin myself into a little corner and be like, oh, today I'm going to make hip-hop. I'm kind of just seeing where I end up going. So I think, especially kind of through the help of friends and kind of musician friends, and being like, just write what you like, and if you want to sing in Japanese, sing in Japanese. If you want to sing in English, go for it. Because I think I've always kind of flitted between the two in my brain anyway, and there's definitely a lot of instances where I'm like, oh God, I wish I could have used that word to better communicate how I was feeling, but not everyone always understands that. And I think a lot of people who are dual language, multilingual, have that same sentiment, because there's definitely like nuances to language and culture that don't always translate very well. So I think when I, decided to kind of use both, I decided to kind of not filter how it is I wanted to communicate, what it is I wanted to say. So I just was like, cool, this is what I instinctively want to reach for and use as a word, and regardless of whatever language, I'm just going to do it. And I think the rest of the cultural references just kind of come. Like, it literally is just as it is. I grew up watching a lot of anime, a lot of Studio Ghibli, so it only go figures that it kind of appears in my work, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of, you mentioned Doom and Dilla. Talk to me about your influence with hip hop as a child growing up in Buckinghamshire. Was it rural? Was it city?
No, I was in a town.
Okay.
So I think Bucks has got pockets of towns surrounded by rural areas. It's just like a commuter town to London.
I feel like hip hop it's such a storytelling art form that it can really pull you from wherever you are and take you somewhere completely different. In the same way that maybe, Ghibli soundtracks are quite fantastical and can exercise your imagination. Hip hop can take you on a story, to somewhere else in the world that feels almost, whether it's like a soap opera, or whether it's a confession, or whether it's, something very intimate. It's very escapist. Yeah. And as a young person in Buckinghamshire, I'm intrigued as to how hip hop has sort of inspired you, perhaps beyond the obvious. I know there's elements of hip hop in your music. But was there anything about that storytelling element of hip hop that really connected with you?
I think, I think the beats hip hop used, for me, I really like the sampling culture, and kind of it was like a found object situation. Love that. But then in terms of the storytelling, I'm a huge fan of storytelling, but I think what I liked is how well rap articulated storytelling and how funny it could be. I really enjoyed the sense of humour and the kind of the wordplay that existed, and I found it really clever. And I think something about it really resonated with me, and I just enjoyed, I really got hooked and invested in stories. And it really, I really did enjoy some of the description. I think for 𝘠𝘢𝘐, I think he's just so funny. Like, even like that line is like rap snitches telling all their business, being the docs, they be their own start witness and things like that. Just like the social commentary element of it was really, really fun. I just loved it. And I think I was really into poetry. And then it kind of went naturally from there as a young kid to then realising, rap's just like next level poetry, 2 songs. Great. What's not to love?
So let's talk about your single, which recently came out with Metronomy.
Yes.
Good Kisses. What a collaboration. Like, huge. Like, how did that come around?
It came around through my label. Well, I think I'd mentioned that I was a fan of theirs to my A&R, and I grew up listening to their music and I just loved it. And he's a very conceptual guy, Joe, and really into that. And then just through the ether, we got put in a session together and we did a couple of days, but then it took, I think, at least a year before we then came back into the room together and sat and wrote music. But yeah, it was great. I really, really enjoy working with Joe. Like, he's very... he's taught me a lot about kind of how to like conceptually write a song. I think when we first got in the room, I don't think I was quite ready to write with him. I was a bit starstruck. And then I think I needed a year and then got back in the room with him. And yeah, like because I went in and was like, okay, cool. So I've got this idea that I really wanted to write this like R&B, because he was talking to me about how he wanted to write R&B music back in the day. So I kind of cogitated on that for a bit and then came back and was like, yeah, let's write an R&B song together. Let's do this, but Metronomy version.
Nice.
And then so it's kind of this weird Mario game soundtrack sounding heartbreak song, and it's so much fun. Like I loved working with Joe. Like, he's so creative. It's kind of inspiring, I think. I
find that stage fright thing... No, not stage fright. Sorry, you said starstruckness.
Yeah.
Totally different phrase.
No,
I find that that's so interesting because, growing up listening to someone and then being in the same room with them, professional to professional, what like a head spin to be in that situation. Like, I'm not surprised it took you a little while to kind of like readjust to go from like pure fan into like fan and collaborator.
Yeah,
it must be, I don't know, what was the process you had to go through to prepare yourself for that studio time?
I think I still think I'm like, oh, this is a job, but I had to definitely do quite a few more sessions with other people to figure out what it is to do a session, because it's quite vulnerable, like going into a room and having to pour your heart out with another person. It's one thing kind of sitting in your bedroom at home with friends and making a song, and then another thing like going into like big girl studios and having to be like, oh gosh, like where do I start? So I think it was just through trial and error of relaxing into the process of being in studio spaces, one, and then kind of realizing that people you're fans of are just, I know it sounds silly, but like they're people, and they're into the same things as you are, and just find common ground that way. But yeah, it did take a minute. Like, it took a hot sec for me to get used to the idea of like sitting in a room with someone that I admired.
And where are you creatively now? Like, where is your head at?
Where is my head at? Always wanting to make something. I definitely still working on it. So I took a bit of a break because I just finished recording a longer project that is going to be coming out soon. So I've got a few songs in the pipeline. But I took a few weeks out after I did that, and then pretty much was like, okay, cool, let's go, let's keep going, because I'm quite enjoying the flow of just making songs and just coming up with something. I don't think I ever really stop making things, there's always something going on in my brain.
Well, that's great. It's like there's always a creative sort of energy within you, and you know, I think it's beautiful to hear that you're constantly kind of just letting it spill out, as opposed to waiting a few weeks, be deep in the admin, and then be creative. It's always nice to meet people that are just constantly overflowing with creativity. No musicians become musicians because they like admin. So
I should get better at it. But do you know what I would like to do? I'd like to try and help other people write songs. I think that'd be a fun exercise.
That's cool. As a collaborator, or kind of like a ghostwriter? I
don't know. I'll just see what happens. If anybody putting the word out there in the ether, if anybody wants a company whilst making a song, I'm down.
The intentions have been set. That's good to hear. Well, let's talk about your chosen year. So you've chosen 2012. Yes. Tell me who Miso Extra was in 2012.
Miso Extra was a baby, but she was having the best time. She went to her Big Girl Festival for the first time. So I went to Reading and Leeds for the first time, which was big. The London Olympics was a thing. There were some iconic music moments from that. I got to go. I remember going to that, and I also went to the Paralympics as well. Wow.
Do you remember what sports?
Yeah, I saw the wrestling. My mum tried. My mum did well. She got us tickets. But I went to see the wrestling at the Olympics, and then I saw the track and field at the Paralympics, which was wild. So that was pretty cool.
Incredible. Nice.
That was really good.
Well, it sounds like you had a great year in 2012. Let's pick out your first item. So tell us about it and what it represents for your year in music.
My first item, it was my first vinyl I ever bought. It was the Justice album, that self-titled one, the black cover with the cross on the front. And I just remember it being so happy because I went to... I can't remember. I think I'd gone into London. I went to a charity shop in Notting Hill, and I went to the record section. I didn't own a record player, but I just knew it was cool to have records. And so I went in there and I saw the Justice vinyl and was like, I know this record. I love this record. That is wild that it's in here for a reasonable price. And I'm going to buy this and cherish this. And then after I bought that, I ended up buying a vinyl player and have to, quite a bit now, but that was a big deal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people actually buy a record before they buy a record player. It's the inspiration that hits in the moment when you see a record you love and you think, oh, I would love that. And it's sort of like a physical representation of your fandom and your appreciation for them. And then comes the thing to play it on. So I think it's quite common, actually.
Oh, do you think? Okay, that's good to know.
I know a few of my friends that have done that. That have bought a few records as kind of, I don't know, in a collecting sort of way, or just as little, signals of their fandom. And then looked at a shelf and thought, this is silly, I should buy a record player.
True. I guess it's like owning a book, isn't it? It's like physically owning a book and people seeing your bookshelf almost, of like, oh, they're into that. Yeah, and I guess you can find common ground that way. But yeah, I loved that album. I still do. It's definitely one of my favourite things. But it blew my mind when I heard that record for the first time. But yeah, owning vinyl is for sure a commitment, I think. It's like, it takes up space and it's like a signifier. It's like buying the band t-shirt, I guess, and wearing that.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's like, I support this.
Yes, yeah, very true. It's a very visual representation of your appreciation. Do you still have it now?
Yeah. It's one of my prized possessions. I love it. I love it so much.
Good to hear.
Perfect. Yeah, I loved. I remember I was listening to New Jack on the way over here, and just being like, oh, this is so good. Like, it's just brilliant. Such an amazing track. I think it was just the fact that it was just so. I think it was the first time I'd heard like French dance, like electro music that sounded so crazy to me, because everything had been quite soft up until then. I felt like, and I was like, oh, this is wild.
Just hit you like bam.
Yeah,
I'm in.
I love, and like the opening song on it. Just I think it's it just makes me think of like the soundtrack to like old Godzilla films or like old like Kurosawa films where it's just like really orchestral sounding, and then it goes into this just like mad chopped up electro sound. There's a really nice synth sound in New Jack. I think about like 1 minute something in that I think is 10 out of 10, 10, 10.
Great, perfect on the ears. You maybe want to revisit that straight away. So thank you. That's going straight in my ears later. Okay, your second item that represents 2012.
My second item, so yeah, I guess like the Reading and Leeds poster from 2012.
Nice.
That was, I did, Justice performed, but I didn't actually go to see them. I can't remember who I went to see that night. I can't remember who the headline was, but I have this really distinct memory of me sitting on someone's shoulders in the pouring rain whilst Florence and the Machine were on stage.
Oh.
And it was just, you know, teenage like dream of this, like, it felt like this like cinematic coming of age moment.
That's like a sepia photograph in a story.
Yeah, no, I've got a photograph of it as well. But I think the photo is of me falling off the person's shoulders.
Oh no. I've had that at a festival as well. I just remember my friend Robin like being like, let me give you a piggyback, and then he just spun me round loads at festival, and then him falling on me and not being able to move for like 10 seconds. It's just that fear of
and
like,
you've captured this on film.
I wish I had. No. Just I feel like there's a lot of us have had those moments at a festival where reckless abandon, you trust your bones are fine, and you're just very excited in the moment, and you're on someone's shoulders, and the next thing you know it's like, oh no, shouldn't have done that. But anyway, glad that you lived to tell the tale. But that sounds like it was a beautiful weekend for you.
Oh, it was amazing. It was great. It was just like the most magical thing. It was like going to a festival with your friends for the first time, and just like going to see all the music that you'd been listening to live in person. I didn't really go to kind of big shows a lot, so it was nice to be able to go to a festival and be able to actually go see it all. Yeah, it was just so magical. And then literally not sleeping, and then going to, I think, Carnival the Monday.
Oh,
after.
wow.
it was a mad
That's
weekend.
epic.
It was great fun.
There's such a sense of freedom with your first ever festival that you go to. The freedom to know that, I don't know if your parents were around or not, or you're with some others. No, so it's just you and your friends with the pure freedom to follow your feet and just chase down whatever artist it is that you wanted to see live. But also just the kind of reckless abandon of it. Like, you loved Justice, but at the same time, it's so hard to plan at a festival, right? I think it's about the joy of kind of letting go and just following your feet and seeing what you discover.
100%. You end up finding things that you didn't know you were going to enjoy, you know, and you just end up also like following the flow of the crowd. And I think it's all the in-between moments. It's kind of when you're sitting in the field somewhere chilling, and then you hear music from somewhere, and you let that kind of be the like, was it like the honey, like almost like a like a honeybee to a hive kind of moment when you're attracted to it. What was your first festival? Do you remember?
I reckon it was, so I grew up on the Isle of Wight, so it was either...
Oh my gosh, okay.
I grew up in London till I was 11, and then I moved to the island, as we call it, the island.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was either festival or Isle of Wight festival. I can't remember, but I had like a steady string of going to both of those for 4 or 5 years. Both of them were very different, like lineup-wise. Isle of Wight festival was a little bit more kind of like indie, quite chilled back, far less stages going on. Festival was a bit more, raucous.
It's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like it's quite spread out and in that kind of hill shape. What's that stage that's right down in the kind of valley? Like it's on a bit of a slope, I think. It's at the bottom of this like
Is it the main stage?
Is it the main stage? I don't know. And then I like the woodlandy bit. There's like a woodlandy bit.
Yeah, Robin Hill was a beautiful location for a festival. Just like loads of woodlands to get lost in.
It's a theme park, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or like a kids park thingy on my
No, you're totally right. It's like a kids theme park. Sadly it's not been on the island for a while now. It's just Camp Festival, I think, in Shropshire and somewhere down south. That's
a shame.
But it still has a lot of the magic. It's a bit more family oriented.
Nice.
But it's still very sweet. But yeah, very, very pro festival family. So your third item, tell us about that.
The Olympics 2012 t-shirt that I got because I went to that, but the opening and closing ceremony for that has some iconic music moments for sure.
Were you at those?
No, I watched those, but I have the t-shirt that I bought when I went to go see that. That was pretty. When I went to go see the wrestling and the running, that was wild. But yeah, I remember seeing the Spice Girls moment on the bus was kind of wild. I'm trying to think. I was trying to remember it. I was watching it last night to try and refresh my memory. I was like, there was quite a few moments. There was like the Arctic Monkeys. I remember they did a song.
Rowan Atkinson.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh, yes! That was.
I can't remember what he did.
Wasn't he pretending to play something?
Yeah.
In part of an orchestra.
Yes. People listening, I'm sure, will be yelling right now, being like, "How can you forget?" But yeah,
there was
I just
quite a lot going
laughing.
on because I was watching. Because I found the YouTube video and I was like, "It's 3 hours." So I don't remember it being that.
Yeah, it was a commitment, wasn't it? But yeah, a spectacle for sure. Were you a big Spice Girls fan?
I wasn't big, but I just thought they were iconic. I'm into. I did love that. I think. I really enjoyed they were like superheroes. I always imagined them as like a character. I love how they had each their own identity, which makes you think of kind of loads of those like early 2000s like kids TV shows where each girl was like a different personality.
Yeah, like Powerpuff.
Yeah, it was like Powerpuff.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't have their own spin-off cartoon series, or maybe they did and I just don't know about it.
That's an iconic idea. Maybe that's something we could see in the future. Who knows? A little reboot of Spice Girls culture.
Could you imagine? I'd love that.
I would love that. I remember the day that Jerry left and I was an absolute bawling mess in school. I almost got to stay home because my parents were like, "Oh, she's a state," but pushed on through, connected with the other fans, you know.
Did you ever? Did they have? Am I right in thinking they had a film?
They did.
Did you watch the film?
I watched the film and it was really special for me because part of it was filmed in Harrow School where my granddad was a caretaker.
Stop it.
Yeah, and that's where I learned to swim because we had access to that.
No
It took me 9 years to learn to swim, but it's a great place to learn. Yeah, I took my time.
At least you can swim.
I finally, yeah, I'm very pleased. But yeah, so to see my granddad's work on the screen was pretty cool.
Wait, was he there at the time?
My granddad wasn't in the film, but he was working at the school during the time of the filming. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Does he have any Spice Girls related memories?
Sadly, I don't think so. But I think he would have.
That would have been iconic.
It wasn't his scene. I think he would have just, scattered off and did his own thing, really. But anyway, very pro Spice Girls. It's nice to hear that was a memory for you in that special year.
Yeah, I was because there was just quite a few performances. I think Paul McCartney wasn't he there at one point? I think there was quite a few cameos. I'm trying to think.
Lots of legends.
Yeah, there was a lot. I think I thought it was quite a good one.
They nailed it. So. Looking ahead, you've got a nice long project coming up. Maybe a little bit too early to say or to share details.
Yes.
But is there anything that is coming up that you're particularly excited about in 2025?
2025, more live shows for Miso. We potentially have some headline shows and a long-form project with more collaborations on the horizon. Some that I'm like even more starstruck when I think about kind of who I worked with on some of the songs.
Oh, that's intriguing. Great.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Can't wait to hear the fruits of your labour. And yeah, thank you so much for being on My Year in Sound.
No, thank you for having me.